We have Leslie Carr from SFMIX, and she's here to talk about NetDevOps. Why, what can it do, what can it do, what can go wrong. All right, so enjoy.
All right, hey everyone, how's it going so far? Good? Aw, thank you, Patrick. Hey, so today I am going to talk to you about NetDevOps. Now, this is a very visual talk, and I know everyone here at NANOG, we all like to have our laptops out, but don't worry, after this talk is done, there will still be someone who's wrong on the internet. So, who am I? Why are you listening to me? Well, I've been in the industry about 15 years now. I've been an operations engineer at a lot of major websites you might recognize, like Google or Craigslist. And now I'm on the board of directors at SFMIX and a fun employed bum for my day job. You are people who are network engineers who are automation curious, but you're running your network in the traditional model. Or you're a systems engineer and you love your network engineers and you want to help them come to this great new world of automation and DevOps. So if you're already automating everything, congrats. Oh, yes. There. Congrats, you can take your laptop back out and start surfing the web again. Today, I'm going to take you on your first steps of taking your infrastructure from legacy style to working in the new DevOps model. But what do I even mean when I say the word DevOps, right? Like, if you ask 100 people, you're going to get 100 different answers. But really, at the very core, for a long time, developers and sysadmins weren't communicating. So this caused a lot of friction between teams. DevOps is the idea that when these teams work together, all of your production environment is in a much better state. But what I think is the most important part is that all of your infrastructure is now thought of and described by code. You can use some great tools like Puppet or Chef or Ansible, and your infrastructure can be completely managed and described by code. So there's no more logging into that router. So today, we can be in a much better place. So now we have the dog of ops working with the pony of dev to lead the kitties of everyone else, right? Your network and systems network team. So DevOps is leading the pack. But right now, the network team is still really just being pulled along, right? Our traditional networking methodology is still pretty old-fashioned. So first, we get our new router. We're logging in manually with a password, typing in passwords. We're typing in commands on the command line on the live routers as they exist. Who here, when they set up a new router, has had to cut and paste the entire configuration over a console? Everyone? Yeah, exactly. And who here has had the console buffer run out and then you're wondering why it hasn't worked? Yeah. Yeah, a couple of vendors have rollback, which is cool, right? I love rollback. Rancid has really historically been the only decent tool that works on everything and can save configurations in state. And, Rancid has been great for what it's done, but I think we're ready to move on from that. And who here has had a typo bring down their whole network? Maybe I should ask who hasn't had a typo bring down their network. Anyone hasn't? Yeah, no, come on. We all can admit it. So why are we so old-fashioned like this, right? Well, everyone in the automation world sort of forgets that a lot of our automation tools have been around for a while. Has anyone here heard of CF Engine? Yeah, all right. CF Engine is often thought of as one of the first usable systems automation tools. So, does anyone here know when CF Engine was written? Anyone? 1906 is a guess from the audience. Very close, just a little early, but still right millennium, 1993, right? So, a lot of people here probably use Cisco. When do you think Cisco's 1PK was released to the general public? Not 1906. It was early 2014. So the systems world has actually had about a 20-year head start on the network world because, that's the systems world had 20 more years to have easy interaction with the systems. And without the help of good tools, and most importantly, the help of vendors supporting and enabling you to interact with those tools, it's no wonder that we've been stuck behind. But I'm here to tell you that automation is for everyone. I'm going to show you how to get to the magic world of working together. With network engineers and systems engineers work together, and we can make our lives better. So here's a couple of common complaints and fears that I've heard from people. It's a fad, but I think as we can now see, automation is no longer a fad. It's been around for, if you math, over 30 years. It's hard. That's legitimate. It is hard. But also, people in this room here run the internet. That's really hard, right? I've heard another fear of losing jobs. Hey, if we automate all these things, half my team's going to go. But that never really happens, right? Usually budgets for your teams, they rarely go down. But you get to learn all this awesome new stuff. And one wrong move will take everything down? Yes, but as everyone here already noticed, one wrong typo has taken everything down. And with automation, you can use computer checks to help lessen the risk. My gear doesn't support it. 2016, this is still very true of a lot of hardware. But I'm going to show you some ways that you can shortcut around it to get to 85% good until your gear winds up supporting this. But the biggest problem and fear I've heard is that I don't know where to start. But that's why you're here, right? It is time. Today, we are going to trust the computers. The internet is built on trust, right? BGP peering. It's basically trusting that that person over there is going to send me, the correct bits that really should be going to that person over there. So how are we going to get starting? There's so many logos. Look at all these choices, all of these different people, and this is just a couple of the logos. Support automation. And one of the best things is that you don't even have to be a programmer because you can cheat and use all of these other cool tools. You see all those things on the right-hand side that other people have written. So really, the biggest problem you have is social and not technical. So we are going to start learning. I believe in you. So before I start here, I just want to mention, since my most recent job was for Cumulus Networks, I have written these configuration snippets just using Cumulus, but I know many of you aren't using it, and it's okay. All of these techniques will work with any gear that you own. So there you go. You can do it on any equipment. It's amazing. Step 1, start using Git. Git is great. It's a text file repository. You have automatic file revisions and change management. It's built so that many teams with large number of people can work on the same files, usually without too much problems. And it's really easy to get started, but there's still a lot of knobs and tweaks for very advanced users. So, if you look here, this XKCD comic really gives me the feel of what I feel about Git. GitHub is a great new place to start. It's free for public repositories, really cheap for private repositories, and they have a really great little tutorial right there. Try github.io. And also, a lot of you probably already have other teams that are using Git. So there's a couple of terms that I'm going to be using here that you need to know, and you'll see all over the Git world. So remote repository is really the central server that hosts the files. And local repository is your laptop, right? You've pulled all the files to your laptop or local repository. A branch is you can make a new copy of all of the repository for new features or risky changes. And merge, it's like it sounds, right? You push back these branches together to the master repository copy. Now, one of the big things is you cannot automate if you don't know what you have. So you just check in all of your configs. That's step 2, very simple. You are going to be amazed at all of these things that you didn't know you had. You're going to be like, oh shoot, this firewall has like the username for like this person who was fired like 5 years ago. How come no one noticed this? Because you didn't have all your configs. So I'm just going to use GitHub to show you a nice little display of changes in action. Check this out. Ooh, hey look, someone logged in and changed all this Quagga configuration. You can see this because you have everything checked into Git. Step 3 is to templatize your configuration files, right? Templates let you reuse your code snippets. When you think about it, for a lot of your routers and switches, you have the same basic things, right? You have your user information, passwords, some generic set of interfaces. So when you think about it, a lot of your configurations are pretty similar. And you can even have your configuration management make your configurations, and then if your gear doesn't support any clients, you can just cut and paste. So here's a little example. Cool, so this is just using Puppet. You can see here we have a network server, which is showing us switch configuration, generating switch configurations. The web, they're saying, hey, look, and this switch, Leaf 1, here's its IP address, here's its web servers, interfaces, there's a storage server, and on the right-hand side, config.pp, you can see that this is taking all of these variables and putting them into a switch template, switch configuration template. And here is a template. So you can see here, it's pretty simple, right? You've got your loopback interface that has an IP, got a web server VLAN, it's got some interfaces in it, got a storage VLAN, got some interfaces in that. Ta-da! You've just made your first configuration file. So now, you've transformed your configuration into code. Ta-da! So that's a good news, right? We're done. What? Got 18 minutes? Not yet. The bad news is that we're still stuck in silos, right? So raise your hand here if your network and systems teams are separate teams. Yeah, it's a lot, right? So raise your hand if they're all the same team. Yeah, a couple, that's pretty cool. So teams often have ticket walls, right? A great example I like to use is with machine turnups. You're going back and forth between the teams, right? Instead of feeling like you're working together, the systems team's putting in a ticket to the network team to turn up this port and turn up this VLAN. The network team says, okay, I did it. And the systems team's like, oh, shoot, I meant that's a web server, not a storage server. Now they go back and forth. And so as network engineers, we all have way better things to do than just assigning machines to ports and VLANs. And systems engineers feel like the network team is just holding them back. So both sides are unhappy. And everyone's day just feels like it's being filled up with boring ticket junk. So this is where Git branches come to the rescue, right? So let's say, cool, I'm on the systems team. I want to add this new machine to this new VLAN and make a branch called VLAN. And then I can then do a pull request, basically a request that allows me to merge the branches in. This allows the network team to check and approve any of the changes, and the systems team to do the work themselves. So here's just a great little example showing in the GitHub UI. It's very easy. Look, all right, cool. I just put a branch in saying new VLAN. I opened a pull request. Hey, this is what just a little description. This is what I wanted to do. Add web server to a new VLAN. And then the network team can approve or deny my request, right? Pretty cool. All you have to do is hit that merge pull request, or can make some comments saying, no, you made the worst mistake ever. So one of the best part is that Git allows you to restrict who can approve changes. So you can have your cake and eat it too. You get the security from the silos, but you've removed the ticket wall between teams. So now everyone's starting to work together. Of course, there's also more than just this. There's some great advanced tools. I could make a whole other talk about this, but since everyone wants to get out of here, I'll just mention the two things that I think will make the biggest impact on your day. Continuous integration systems. These are great. It's something that can run checks on your code every time you check it in. Travis CI is a great free online option, and Jenkins is another great free open source project. In many workplaces, you'll probably already have one of these, so just ask all of your coworkers on the other side of your wall how you can plug into it. So for me, I can't type some things correctly, right? I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, shoot, I just always make this typo. So I've got this list of words that I misspell. Anytime I want to check something in, I run it through Jenkins. If Jenkins finds these words, it gives me a failure message, doesn't let me check it in. Pretty cool, right? And for extra advanced credit, you can write more tests around your configurations, just to make sure that you aren't making some common mistakes that we all make. So the next best thing is to virtualize a copy of your network. So everyone knows that all the vendors have their own virtualized platforms. Some are free, and some are only after you've paid a ton. GNS3 is really cool. It is a free open source option that supports almost every platform there is. So now, anytime you want to make a change, you can try it out on your virtual network to make sure it works beforehand, right? So you don't have to trust that the firewall change is really going to work. And that new cool BGP idea, you can test it and tweak it to make sure that your 2 a.m. maintenance is going to go smoothly. Because at 2 a.m., you don't want to be troubleshooting, right? My biggest problem with virtualization is after I got hooked, I'm like, how can I ever live without this? So, and the last advanced topic is to take a leap of faith and install the automation clients directly on your switches or routers. Of course, not all equipment has a client yet, but you all can bug your vendors, or your vendors bug your other team members inside your company to support, one or more of these common automation platforms. So now we're happy, right? Yay! But once again, there's still 12 minutes left. You're like, this sounds great, Leslie, this is awesome, but what happens when things go wrong, right? Let's check out, I made a mistake. Look at this, I mistyped my loopback, I made it a /3. That's not gonna go very well, right? And as a little side note, I know at least 3 major websites where this exact kind of typo has happened that's taken down a lot of traffic. And sure, you're all hopefully using peer review, having someone look over your shoulder before you hit enter, but maybe your reviewer didn't have their coffee. So I push the config. It's going so well. I'm so excited. Oh. All right, just gotta watch this one more time. I love it. Yeah. Your website is down and your pager is blowing up like a puppy. So your pager's ringing. You might not have time to go through all of these changes that you just did to figure out specifically what went wrong and where, right? Because you want your website back up now. So this is where Git rollback comes to the rescue. Boom. Since Git can keep track of each incremental change, a git revert tells Git to just undo the previous change. So this way you can get it back into a safe state. So here we go. If you are certain it was the last change, here are just all the commands you need to get your network or your Git repository back into a good state. Then of course you still have to push it out to your network. But this way, you don't have to worry about where did this last change come from. And of course, when you make a commit, it is only reflected on the local branch. That's why git push is very important, so that it goes back onto that remote repository or server. Make sure the fix is propagated. Whew, we're all better now. We fixed the problem, we've got a little bit of breathing room. All right, but this brings up actually my favorite part of the DevOps philosophy, which is the postmortem. Because without a postmortem to tell you what went wrong, you're clicking your heels and wishing it never happens again. So postmortems are seriously the best part about DevOps cultures. It's about finding ways to improve your process to make sure that technical mistakes don't happen again, right? It is not about assigning blame to people. That is very important. But you do have to be completely accurate, right? Let's say you got really drunk at NANOG, and at 3 a.m. you decided it would be a great idea to go to your data center and do a handstand, and you bumped into your router and you broke it, right? You have to own up to this, because that is the only way we can fix things. And that last part about a good postmortem is fixing things. How can we enact an institutional or technical change to prevent this from happening again? So, for example, for this case, we can install breathalyzers on the doors to the data center. There you go, no more drunk 3 a.m. trips. Or, in a more practical note, we can use one of our continuous integration systems to write a test to check for a configuration mistake. So, it's very important that everyone realizes that failure is okay. You want everyone to feel comfortable when they mess up because we're all humans. So now, you've gotten to get rid of a lot of drudge work? Oh, yeah. So you've moved from this to this. So I just want to go over what we just did. First, set up Git. Then you can transform all of your configuration into code using templates. Break down the silos and the evil ticket walls by encouraging your coworkers to interact with you with pull requests. And then for extra credit, you can use continuous integration tools and virtualization to help you out, test your configurations before you deploy them. And then you can use configuration management agents to pull the changes automatically. And now you're on the journey to the great land of teamwork and NetDevOps. Any questions? Please just come up to the microphone.
I'm Victor from Visa. So question is, Git has been used by the software engineers for a while. For us, the network operators, we need to know the knowledge behind those configuration files. Do you have any hints? Like if I make some changes, is there any code book to help us validate our changes?
Well, for the validation, so first, one other cool thing about Git is when you make a configuration change in Git, you make a commit message, which is a little summary to tell you, so you can see, line by line what someone's changed, and hopefully they've written a descriptive message on why they've done that. Mm-hmm. You can ask your fellow software engineers to help you out with Git, just for learning that part. And you already are bringing to the table all of the network configuration knowledge that you already have. So that way, if you work together, hopefully you come up with a much better way. Did you have any follow-ups? Or?
We do use some software, which is commercial software, to do the change validation.
Yeah. So if you use if you virtualize your network, like using free open source software or commercial software, right, then that's my favorite thing, because you can even have a hook in your Git system that as soon as you commit, it will then spin up a virtual environment or go to the virtual environment, and then you can make some tests to just make sure that everything runs okay. Yeah. So that's virtualization is amazing.
Yeah. I was trying to get is, in one of the automation framework, Chef, they have an auditing feature, which I haven't taken a look yet, but I was thinking maybe more frameworks or related things around there. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I believe you were next.
Yeah. Octavio Alvarez from GlobalSat. First, call for the vendors to include diff-friendly output in their CLI, because as a human, it's useful to know that a device rebooted by reading that the uptime is low. But if I'm using Git revisions, it's really useless to have a different number each time I commit or audit a device. So it will be better to have when did that device last rebooted. So that's the first comment. And a question, what if there's always exceptions to the rules? What if one needs to do some temporary changes, like shutting down a BGP peer for maintenance that should actually not go into configuration management, or maybe it should. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I like to still use configuration management for that. You can put a note, like a comment in notes saying this should be temporary. But one of the cool things about configuration management is that, like, let's say you've made a commit and all it is shutting down a BGP peer, right, for a maintenance. Well, then I could just revert that specific commit to get your configuration back, because you always want. In my mind, I like to think of every switch and router is actually temporary. So it could go away tomorrow, and I want to make sure, or it could go away in a minute, and I want to make sure that, for its replacement, the configuration is exact and precise and correct. So I like, no matter how small of a change, to put it in configuration management.
Thank you.
Mike.
Hello, I'm
Hello.
Mike Hughes from Limelight Networks. You were talking about the existence of ticket walls between departments, and please can I have a VLAN here and some IP addresses there and things like that. As well as the nice group hug of living in a cozy world of Git and Jenkins and things like that, what do you think the other key advantage is of having the config automation and the continuous integration in terms of, it's going to turn into a comment rather than a question, this speed. You did not mention speed.
That is true.
I think that's something that's missed there, because literally you can look at this and look at what's being changed and you can just go, LGTM, boom, gone. And there's no, here you go, and I'll update a ticket, because you're creating your audit trail as you go as well of all the things that you've done. Whereas, right now you've got this thing where, create me a VLAN here, and you go and create a VLAN there, and then you paste back into the ticket what you've done. So yeah, as well as that cozy group hug kind of thing, as the kittens and things involved, I'll talk about cozy group hugs.
No,
I think there's a speed thing there. There's a speed advantage.
It's a very good point. Also, because if you're looking at a 1,000-line configuration, we're all humans. It can be tough to see exactly what changed. Whereas Git, if you looked at that, a lot of the UIs, it's just in red and green. It's bright, it's there, you can see exactly what changed, and you then only have a single source of truth. You don't have to trust that someone cut and pasted the correct lines in, because you haven't had your coffee. Maybe you forget a change that you did and you have to cut and paste it in. But thank you for that excellent point.
Hi there. Jeff Stutt from Akamai. One question, you had mentioned earlier about clients for particular vendors.
Yes.
What is your opinion? I have seen a very slow adoption rate, primarily because most of the vendors are pushing their own configuration management, whiz-bang of the month or the week or the year for that configuration automation. I've seen a very slow adoption rate into where in the sysadmin world, open source is a lot more fluid, a lot more accepting. So what have you seen from vendors trying to either A, from a client standpoint, or going more into the adoption rate of using this? And then kind of part B of the question is, how do you see this being further and further integrated into software-defined networking? Well,
I'll give a very short answer, because this is something, buy me a beer later and I can talk for hours about it. So one problem about different vendors trying to make their own special solution is that all of a sudden there's two problems. You've lost all this institutional knowledge, like for Chef, I can Google this, and there's thousands and thousands of people who have run into problems similar to mine, which is Google's really your best resource, or Yahoo, or Bing, or DuckDuckGo. Don't want to be, single anyone out. And so when a vendor says, I want to do something special, it says, all of a sudden, I have to learn a lot more. So this makes a community of people who are learning this very small. I don't gain from this institutional knowledge. And you're once again saying that networks are incredibly special and different, where there are some different applications that we do, but also they're still, at their core, usually Linux-based systems. And so we shouldn't think that our tools have to be special. We can use all of these great tools that have already been developed. Plus, if there's a tool that's used by millions of people, it's less likely that that tool is going to just get dropped and not supported, versus you have a specialized vendor tool that's only used by maybe 1,000 people. Just because no matter how many switches and routers we have, there are going to be more servers. It's just a fact. And I have seen slow adoption from pretty much almost every vendor. There's been two sides. Well, one, on their side, it's hard. There's more than two sides. Another is that as soon as you have an easy API to work with multiple vendors, it's a lot easier to switch. So that is a downside. And also, one thing that all of the people purchasing can do is really push and insist. Like, having recently come from a vendor, the biggest voice in what feature is developed next is people talking to sales engineers and saying, I need you to do this, because they're for-profit companies and money talks. So if everyone here writes your sales engineer right now and says, I insist that you support all the automation clients, that will really help get things moving. Hopefully that's enough of an answer. And yes, please buy me a beer and I will rant about it for hours.
These questions need to be really quick.
Oh, sorry. All right.
Hi,
Last two, very, very short.
Okay, Stefan from DENIC, just a couple of notes. We do it since a longer time, and I think the first thing is, if you want to find out how good you already are, there is this buzzword continuous delivery, and there's a so-called continuous delivery maturity model. So it's basically a thing you can do with your team where you can find out how good you are with continuous delivery. And there are at least, I think, four levels, and so it's a good way to start to get a baseline how good you currently are and where you stand, and it gives valuable tips. The other thing is, you didn't show how you organize your data. In our company, the problem is when all the CD stuff started, all the companies had different databases, configuration item databases, and you have to merge them. You have to find a way how you, for example, how do you store your DNS names, how do you store IP data, and so on.
Yeah, that's something that I can't decide for every company.
Yep.
But if you look online, GitHub has a lot of people's configuration repositories. Wikimedia Foundation, for example, puts everything on GitHub, so you can just steal their ideas if you want to. That's
we found some ways, but just want to tell the people that it might be really difficult when you're from the networker perspective. You have system engineers, you have storage guys, and so on, and you want to create a total product pipeline where you have all to put all the skills, all the databases together. This might be difficult, and you have to think about it, so that it's not only network centric.
But I think it's a lot easier than you think, and communication is really the key.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Hi, Patrick from Markley Group. This is all cool. I really like many of the ideas, the ticketing and putting it in someplace. But you're suggesting that we put it on a public repository.
No, that you can also use private repositories.
Private
GitHub
repository that is somebody else.
You also
Are you worried about the security?
Git is an open source server, so you can run Git server on your own. I just suggest GitHub because it's free and easy. But if you want to run your own Git server, every Linux distribution, it's rebuilt for every Linux distribution. That's all you have to do. I'm a Debian girl, so apt-get install.
That's what I was hoping you would tell everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah. So you can run it on your own too. And there's a good chance that some other department of your company is already running one. So, why do the work yourself when you can have someone else do it for you? Well, thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Leslie. Software is great. I'm pretty certain the exploding dog was possibly hardware failure or system failure. And